The world hasn't gotten any less crazy since we last talked, I don't think so.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. Good to see you smiling though.
Yeah, well, what else are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just got to do the best you can for yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of where we're at. So, well, yeah, it looks like we're going to have a pretty good turnout today. We've had a lot of questions and stuff, which I don't answer till later because I know you're the knowledgeable one.
Well, I hope. I don't know how much I know really.
Well,
Christine has to be out of the office today for a personal appointment, but Chris is going to jump on with us, I think.
oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
We've got some people waiting in the waiting room. Do you have anything to say, or can I go ahead and start letting them in? Or
Let him in.
okay, we'll
Okay.
do. All right, we'll do. Thank you. Morning. Come on in. Oh, hello. Good morning. Good to see everybody. There's some
Hey,
smiles out there.
John.
Morning.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Hi.
Yeah. There's Dwayne. I see a bunch of smiling
Hey,
faces. There's James. How y'all doing?
Good.
I'm doing
good.
fine. I have a question for Kathy though, before we get started.
Okay.
I heard a rumor that the feds are looking at making a law that will stop us from having them sign that they will give up their right to a jury trial across the nation. Have you heard anything about that?
No, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, bearer of bad news, huh?
Well, you got to feel sorry for the jurors. I mean, is really what this is. These kind of matters that we have are small things. I mean, I completely understand the absolute right to a jury trial in a criminal proceeding. And I understand in big dollar lawsuits where that might be a good thing. But I will tell you something, jury trials are tough now. Jurors do not want to put their phones down. It is very difficult to hold their attention. They resent you from the word go. The only ones who want to be there are the ones who are completely clueless and don't make great jurors. It's very difficult. I think that's not going to get any easier. People's attention spans and that kind of thing. And so I just think that's kind of cruel to the jurors. When most of our cases, as you know, don't have lawyers on the other side, and when a person who's not represented asks for a jury trial, they don't understand all the complicated things they have to do. They have to do jury instructions and motions in limine and all these things that many attorneys don't know how to do, let alone pro se people. And it's difficult for the judge. The judge has to try to be fair to both sides, but they can't do the legal work for them. And then for the jurors, it's painful. You've got someone who's not represented fumbling around, or, in the cases where you have an attorney on the other side, maybe they ask for a jury trial to get a delay or something, but ultimately they're probably going to waive it. And if they do try it to a jury, they're going to lose. And that's not fun either for anybody except me, because we win. But
That's why we got you.
it's not that right. It's not that much fun to spend that much time on it, on a small case. I know that there's a big dilemma in the courts, in a lot of these judicial conferences and things, where they're concerned about the transition from traditional court to, I don't know if you want to call it more modern or more technical courts. We were having a lot of debates about remote court appearances prior to the pandemic. And then all of a sudden, Zoom, we were 10 years into the future with remote court appearances. There are judges who want to go back to the way it was as soon as the pandemic's over. They don't want to have any remote court appearances at all. And I think we're going to have remote court appearances. Not everything is going to be done that way, but that's going to be available to people. I think that the willingness of people to serve as jurors is going to erode immensely. I think that it's probably good to try to limit these forced arbitration clauses. I think a lot of those are unfair. But, when you just buy something from, Best Buy or whatever, and then it blows up in your kitchen and injures people and you have to do an arbitration to get your damages, yeah, that's not right. Those things should be able to go through the court system, but we're going to see amazing changes as a result of this pandemic, technically. Amazing changes, some good, some bad. There are judges who do not want to take testimony remotely. They feel that they can't gauge whether the person is being truthful or not. It's very interesting to think about that.
Mm-hmm. Glad I asked.
Sorry, was that too much information?
No, it's a lot of good information. I just would think that they should also have the right to say, I don't want a jury trial, I'll just take the judge.
Oh, you generally do have that right. Yeah, you generally have the right to waive jury. They're saying, I think what you're talking about is there going to be legislation to say you can't contractually waive jury. That's possible.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like this person was
Yeah.
saying, and it didn't make sense. So I said, Friday's coming.
Yeah. There's
Wow.
also a proposed change to bankruptcy law that right now, if your tenant files bankruptcy, they either have to pay you all the rent or they have to move. And there's a proposed change that would allow them to be forgiven for the past rent and still stay there.
Mhm.
That we're very opposed to, but I wouldn't be surprised if that gets passed also.
Mm.
On a national level or state level?
That would be bankruptcy, so that's federal, so that's national.
No. Anybody
Right
want to
now,
buy some?
when they file bankruptcy, they have to accept or reject the lease, which means if they accept the lease, they have to accept all the responsibilities of the lease. And if they reject it, they can be discharged from the back rent they owe, but they have to go.
Right.
And there's also a push, and I don't know if this will happen or not, but I've seen this discussed to allow everybody that got a judgment against them during the pandemic to have that wiped off their credit. So again, we talked about this the last time. I know it's been 3 weeks, but let me say again that everybody needs to tighten up their credit checking. We know that tenant lawyers are routinely asking for cases to be have the security level raised on CaseNet. So make sure that you're going back and talking to prior landlords, go back a couple of landlords if possible. It's possible that they are being evicted and you're not going to see it on CaseNet because the security level got raised.
That's part of being
check,
transparent, right?
still check CaseNet, but well, you know, I will tell you, there are judges who are very conflicted about this. They don't want to do this. They think that the court records of the court are generally open and they should remain that way. Now, we do have occasional exceptions. I had one recently that the tenant was a victim of domestic violence and we were asked to consent to the raising the security level so that her stalker couldn't find her on CaseNet and find her new address. So we agreed to that. That was fine. Juvenile records, the same thing. Those are, you know, generally closed to general public because it involves children, you know, things that involve children. But everything else, I mean, there's a lot of judges who believe that should all be open record. So I know Chris is here.
Do we
I
have
know
to
that
agree?
we've had, what?
Do we have to agree to have it closed or open? Or do they just ask for it and they automatically get the bankruptcy, I'm sorry, the eviction covered up where nobody can access it? Do we have to consent to that or does the tenant have that option and we have no say so?
Our general position as a firm, an attorney on the other side asks us as part of a settlement to agree to raise the security level, we will not oppose it. We do that because in that moment we're representing that client. And if we can get a settlement for that client that's agreeable, and part of the settlement is we will not object to raising the security level, that's what we will do. I can't think of a time when we have ever raised the security level ourselves, asked for it on behalf of our clients. We've not really had any reason to, but they could get it raised over our objection. It's up to the judge in any given case whether they agree to do it or not. Some judges are more inclined to allow it than others.
Is there any talk
Missouri-
because of the pandemic, just doing that blanket for all the evictions?
that there's people that want that. There's tenant advocates who want all the eviction judgments and everything wiped out, all the credit problems wiped out for people from during the pandemic.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of.
Well, it just means that, you know, as I said 3 weeks ago, everybody really ramp up your screening if you can. Be extra careful. So I want to talk about something that I transmitted to John, and I think Lloyd saw it earlier this week.
Mhm.
It was a story that ran on Channel 4 on the Monday night 10 p.m. newscast. I think you guys have a link to it on your website.
Yes.
I found it, you know, both hilarious and sad. It was a great story, very well done, about an individual landlord, kind of a mom and pop situation, who rented a house to this lady who then refused to get out because of the pandemic. And they had some amazing pictures of the inside of the house because it was destroyed and doors thrown off and, you know, all this kind of thing. And of course, the tenant gave a very nice profanity laden interview to the news guy. So it was a very good clip for landlords, you know, explaining our situation. I hope if you haven't seen it, you go look at it. I will tell you that I had nothing to do with it. I wish I had, but I don't know that landlord, and you know, was not involved in the representation or anything, but she did a great job. Channel 4 did a great job. And I feel like, once again, there's just going to be an overwhelming flood of people advocating for tenants to be forgiven from rent and allowed not to be evicted and live for free and all this. And we need to get our own back a little bit when we can, to say, hey, there's two sides to this. You know, the landlords have bills too. And this lady was good. She was explaining to, this landlord was explaining to Chris Nagus of Channel 4 that, you know, she and her husband depend on the income from this house as part of their livelihood. So it was a very well done story, and I hope you all look at it. When we looked at the part of the interview that where they showed the inside of the house that had been destroyed, my husband looked at it and he was a little shocked. And I said, honey, I said, I've tried cases all the time with pictures like that. That's not new. I mean, you wonder why they rip doors off hinges. I don't know, but you know, I feel if I were personally involved in that story in any way, I think I would have been reporting the tenant, to DFS, because apparently there were children living there, and you hate to see children being brought up in those horrible conditions in the horrible environment. But it's not the landlord's fault. And the tenant during the interview tried to pin it on the landlord and say, oh, it's the landlord, you know, landlord's fault, the conditions are bad. Well, the landlord didn't go in and destroy their property, you know, and toss all the furniture around and rip doors off the hinges. That's crazy. But it was a great story. I hope you get to look at it. And Chris, if you're ready, can you go over what's going on in the city and your other counties right now?
Yeah. So the city is, we just had our first docket of the new year with the new judge in the city. We are seeming to get, you know, fairly standard court dates. We no longer have, unfortunately, or fortunately, it depends how you look at it. We don't have no longer have a special docket just for landlords. So I got thrown back in with the general population with all the MSD and the creditors. Our new judge tends to seem to understand the urgency of landlord tenant. He seems to be well tempered for it, but like anything else, you know, we'll have to see how it goes as far as things are going on. I mean, we continue to be hamstrung by the moratorium, both the city and the CDC. Where the city one is the more pressing one. It has been extended to January 31st. It has been every month since August. I would, my understanding from talking to Kathie, who is in with the judges, is that the new judge, who is the presiding judge who gets to make the call on the city moratorium, is a little more skeptical than the prior judge, but I'm not holding my breath just yet. You know, until these, my guess would be until these cases, we start seeing a noted decline, they're going to keep extending this moratorium, which again, as we've explained, anybody who's not been on this before, doesn't stop us from doing anything but getting the sheriff. Unfortunately, the ones who tend to be the worst tenants are the ones who are just waiting it out for the sheriff. So, you know, you don't quite get the benefits of, you know, a lot of tenants are coming and I'm just while we've been on this call, I've been typing up a payment plan for one we filed where the guy is going to pay $1,100 next week, and he hopes to pay everything off by the end of February. So we'll see, but it may get at least one payment into my client, and that's better than nothing. At least it paid for more than what he paid us for the suit, so he makes some money on it. But so I mean, everything's normal in the city. I mean, as normal as it can be right now. Things are moving a little bit slower, but we are able to get court dates. My guess, if you're a person who likes to file your cases on your own, you're going to be looking to continue to get your court dates fairly far out, just the way they're so backed up with those dockets. But we've got 2 fresh judges in these divisions. Maybe they'll have a little more energy than the last ones to get things moving. We'll see. But I anticipate we'll be dealing with virtual here in probably the city. I would speculate through the summer, and then hopefully, by March or April, we can start seeing, hope on the end of being able to actually get the really bad tenants out who aren't paying. We are, encouraging everybody to still apply for the CARES Act funding. Every tenant I talk to, I remind them that more money is coming. So if they were denied the first time due to lack of funding, to try again. I anticipate that from what I'm hearing, it's going to take a few weeks to get the money into the right people's hands, and then then we're back to hoping they have enough people to administer it and get the process going. So if still keep applying for that. The other counties, St. Charles and Jefferson, are fairly normal. There's no moratoriums out there other than the CDC moratorium, which we don't see a lot of effect on that one because it requires tenants to actually do something, and require them to give the CDC moratorium declaration stating that they would like to take advantage of that protection, and most tenants don't know how or that to do it. In fact, out in Jefferson, they seem to be requiring that notification be given within 10 days of receipt of a letter from the landlord that they have the right to do so. And then I saw what I appeared to be a trial last week where the judge denied the declaration based upon that timeliness, which is probably a violation of federal law, but I will, I wasn't going to say anything. Not something but keep an eye out. If your tenants give you a CDC declaration, it doesn't mean that you can't file an eviction against them, but it does mean until the CDC allows us to move forward that you would be prevented from taking the action of using the sheriff against them. That is only for rent cases, not for people who are having problems other than rent. But it is something to keep an eye out. If your tenants are sending you something, that's what it means. And I anticipate that will also get extended, probably, I would guess January 20th. You'll hear, or shortly thereafter, you hear a little bit more about how that's going to get extended. My guess is they'll piggyback on that rather than issue a new CARES Act order like they did, because it's a little more, a little more all encompassing. So we'll keep an eye on that. And we'll let you know on updates. St. Charles is pretty normal, same thing. Jefferson has managed to keep COVID out of their courthouse for at least a few weeks. So we'll hopefully that continue. They've built I was up there this week and they've built new dividers and, seem to be taking it fairly seriously. So hopefully that continues, but we'll see up there. But that's all I've got as far as updates. Everything else we're just kind of waiting around for.
Well, I did talk to another landlord attorney who had talked to our new PJ in the city, Judge Stelzer, and he thinks that Judge Stelzer is going to open up evictions more quickly than Judge Burleson was willing to. But we're going to have another call with him next week, and I could know more then. But they decided to let the order that we already have that was supposed to expire at the end of December, they decided to let that sit for one more month. Excuse me. It's disappointing about the vaccine that it's not getting out as quickly as we'd like, as we hoped. This is going to continue to drag on. With respect to St. Louis County, we're status quo there. We're still in phase 0. Judge Burton is with us for another year, maybe 2, as presiding judge. He is not going to lift the stay on evictions until we get to phase 2 there. It's possible he'll go to phase 1 today. We won't know for sure until Monday. But then he'll stay at phase 1 for at least 2 weeks before he goes to phase 2. And I just don't, I don't have hold out a lot of hope for getting clearance in St. Louis County very soon. Judge Burton, as I think you've heard me say this before, he ties the eviction stay to the safety of the sheriffs. We find this just not credible because he's still letting them serve process, which involves a lot more contact. You know, when you think about what we were doing last March compared to what we're doing now, and how we know that masks can protect us and being outdoors and, you know, social distancing and everything. I mean, believe me, in normal times when they evict people, they don't get that close to the tenants anyway. They're not hanging out with them. They go in, tell them they have to leave the premises and get out. It's not a 3-course meal at a fancy restaurant where you're there for hours. I mean, this could easily be done safely, I think. I was talking to my husband about this recently, about how, you know, when we were going to the grocery store at first and nobody had to wear a mask and people didn't do it and you didn't know what was going on and it was scary. And now, you know, we do all these errands, we protect ourselves as best as we can, and, you know, we move on. We're, you know, our bills are not stopping because of this pandemic, and I know yours aren't either. So we have another video or telephone conference, Zoom conference with Judge Burton next week that I'm on. The other reasonable landlord lawyer that was on it with me has dropped out. He's gotten tired of it. The tenant lawyers have gotten more and more crazy, and I'm just not expecting to have good news, but if I do, you guys will be the first to know. There was an article in the paper, in the Business Journal, that I think you guys may have seen before the Christmas break, that interviewed a lot of landlords who all did a great job. And the county spokesman, Christine Bertelson, you know, made it sound like it was the court making policy, which is not what the court's supposed to do. And I have since talked to a couple of judges in the county who are very opposed to what's going on there. They think that it's absolutely not the role of the courts to make this kind of policy. But I think that we're not going to get a lot of traction until the virus numbers go down and, you know, that kind of thing. And I am sympathetic to the judges and the clerks who are, you know, finding out that judges they just had lunch with have the virus, clerks have the virus, 2 deputies died. You know, that's a lot of scary stuff. That's really hard. We haven't had anybody in our office get the virus yet, but that would be very frightening if it happened. So I wouldn't feel as safe here as I do now. And I know I told you that probably everything would change, you know, during the 3 weeks we were off for Christmas, the 2 video conferences that we missed. We know that the new PPP thing was passed. I just read that for businesses, they're going to start on the 11th, but the first 2 days are only going to be for people who didn't get a PPP loan the first time. And then on the 13th, they're only going to be for people who are applying through community development funders or something. And I just emailed my banker to try to find out what that is. I'm thinking that's not a bank like I have. But it looks like maybe late next week, those who are eligible can apply for a new PPP loan. So I'd urge you to keep your eyes on that. We certainly are. And I see that someone has posted a link in the chat to the story on KMOV, which I think you should all watch for your enjoyment. Does anybody else have any questions or anything for us?
Yeah, Kathy?
Yeah.
Like in my case, I own my properties free and clear, so the CDC doesn't apply to me because of the ownership. But are we better off just strictly doing month to months at this time? And in that way, if they don't pay, the unlawful detainer allows you the ability to help us get them out?
You know, I don't think this is going to be a long-term thing enough to say don't do a lease. Just do month to month. And the CDC applies to you even if your properties are not financed. The eviction stay still applies if the tenants qualify for it and file the proper declaration.
Oh, okay. I thought we were exempt because I remember Chris had us provide that statement saying that we didn't have any loans and we owned the properties free and clear.
Jerry, that was from the CARES Act versus
That was
the
the first
CDC.
day. Yeah.
That's why
Oh, okay.
I was saying, I think the Democrats will likely use the CDC order as opposed to making their own separate order, just because it covers. They found a loophole to cover everybody, as opposed to what they were doing before, where they thought they could only control federally backed mortgage properties. So it does apply to everyone, unfortunately. But like I mean, Christine and I have probably seen less than 10 of these filed.
I see.
Since it happened. So a lot of people don't know, they'll come into court and say, I thought I couldn't be evicted, but they won't actually file what they need to file.
Okay.
Someone just asked in the chat if we know anything about the stimulus package, if there's money for landlords and tenants. And we do believe that there was billions of dollars awarded for rent relief. I don't have any details yet, and I will forward stuff to John as soon as I get anything in writing. Anybody else?
Hi, this,
Everybody okay?
yeah, this is Diana. Can you guys hear me? Hi.
Yeah.
Hey, I did, when I was in Colorado before the holidays, I was listening to a program on NPR, which was, of course, from the tenant's viewpoint. And, we're all evil monsters, et cetera, as landlords. But apparently they are going to do, it's a national broadcast. They're going to do a version sometime in January from the landlord's perspective. I just caught the back end of it or the latter part of it. So I don't know what it is, but folks might want to keep their ears out if they listen to NPR, or I can try and find out when that broadcast will be, because it was actually quite in depth from the tenant advocate standpoint, and they promised a quote unquote for NPR, that's an unbiased version from the landlord's point of view sometime in January. So you might want to keep your ears out for that. Might be useful.
I'll look into their website to see if it has anything, has a link or anything.
Yeah, and this, I can't remember. I wish I could remember. I did not hear what the program was, but I know it was one of the nationally syndicated shows. So
I think they're going to be sorry if all the landlords go away.
I think they will be too, because I tell you what, a lot of my peers are really rethinking. There are other ways to do, to make money besides this. So.
Well, there's something that's popular in the Central West End where you get a cardboard sign and you stand at a corner. They seem to take in money. And they're not stayed in any way because of the pandemic.
I'm sure they declare all that on their income taxes too.
Yes, certainly. There's one lady who's very notorious. She stands at Skinker in Forest Park, or Skinker in Lindell, and she gets picked up every day in a Lexus. So I think she must be doing well. So anybody else have anything? Are y'all good? You made it through the holidays?
So far.
Yep. They're over, John.
They're never
so
over.
far, so good.
They're never over. We live the holidays these days.
Yeah.
Now, great update, Kathie and Chris. Thank you very much. We are in for some more rocky rides, it looks like, before everything is said and done.
Well, I hope that they get the vaccine distribution straightened out quickly.
Yep. Again, thanks for everything, because what you do for us is awesome.
I appreciate having the chance to talk to you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much again.